What's going on, YouTube? My name is GinJ-TCG or Chris, and today I'm back with another episode for the Battle VIPs podcast, joined by my co-host Avery. How you doing today, bro?
I'm doing just fine, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into this. Who's ready for rotation? I know half of you guys are crying right now. It's okay, I understand. You know, Drago's gonna be gone. Your Rotom Vs are gonna be gone. Your Lumini, everything's gone.
Arceus, my lord is gone.
We're gonna literally,
Literally,
Lord is leaving us.
My lord is gone. Carried me to the first day too. Carried me through four regionals. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but that's a rant for the next episode. For today, as you hinted at, this is gonna be our last episode for our last tier list for the F block set. By the time the next episode comes out, it will be 1 week until we get rotation. So I feel like a tier list at that point. You know, we were talking about it. Tier list is kind of pointless. So we're gonna do like a cards we're gonna miss, cards the format's gonna miss the most, and then more importantly, like a buy list going into the next set. You know, you got a week to plan and make your buy list. So we'll be talking about that in the second half of the episode, and just talking about which decks we think are gonna take off post rotation. You know, cards we're looking to buy, the fun rogue decks I'm looking to jump into. You know, stuff like that. We'll talk it in the next episode. So, yeah. Anything else you need? If not, let's jump into this last tier list. First up, kind of a wild pick. We got Aegislash, the single prize menace, the mimic you but tankier. Avery, where do you see Aegislash at right now?
As of today, I have it in the come up rogue category simply for the fact that it's newer. It is something that people haven't really experimented with as much, but I genuinely feel like any Pokemon with Safeguard is instantly going to be at least decent to play. Yeah. Because there's so many 2-prizers, 3-prizers eventually that are going to be in the format that can't really do much to it. And it's usually one of those 50-50s. You go into every match and do a 50-50. Can they attack me or can they not? Do they play something like a Shrine of Memories so they can use older attacks? Do they have anything that's sort of like that?
That wouldn't work because it's still, if it's the EX or V, but at this point it'll rotate. But for now, we're still in the F block. Do they have a Pokemon that can attack? Actually, I think I need
do they choose to evolve the Dragalox or not? Because they're, you know what I mean? Something like that, where they refuse to go into the Dragapult.
Yeah.
And they can't hit you, but also they're going to get one shot by you anyway. So something that has Safeguard is always going to be a very good option for you, especially if you're going in and unsure about what to play. You always have a safe option with a Safeguard Pokemon.
I'm gonna keep it $150 with you. And everyone knows from the channel, I've been, and you know better than anyone, I've been sick all weekend, not been able to record. I played one deck all weekend, the entire weekend. I haven't touched a deck besides Aegislash. This deck is busted. Like, this deck is so good. I'm not gonna tell everyone that it's tomorrow's episode of the random deck I'm playing, my deck showcase, but it's tomorrow's episode. It's insane. I lost one match in it. Wasn't in any way anyone here is going to expect, and that's fine. Like, this deck is cracked, and I think one of the most important things about it is decks that can attack it by not evolving or something like that. Like, you brought up Dragapult. You know, if they stay in Dracloaks, like, they could attack it. That does 70 damage. You're at 150 HP. What do you pair this with Luxurious Cape, and you're sitting at a 250 HP Pokemon that blocks out EXs and Vs? The only thing you're worried about is, like, a random Radiant Charizard, most notably, but so many Dragapult decks don't play that. Guardy's scary, sure, but every deck I think has one bad matchup. Other than Guardy, this deck I feel like could take everything. And well, I've played it all weekend. I've flown through matches. I mean, it's insane how many decks this card can wall off. Sure, some decks have like an attacker that could beat through it, but one is not enough when they're staring down 3 Aegislash when 2 of them have Cape. And I know some people are thinking like, oh, Dragapult, you could stack up the Phantom Dive damage with 2 Mist Energy and 3 Colress's Experiment Tenacity, excuse me. You could just search out the energy instantly, and boom, you're set up. You search out Grand Tree Mist Energy. What does your opponent do? You know, you're fine. The other thing that I processed, but I didn't realize the weight of, was you have 150 base HP. That's more than Dusknoir. So if you go Cape, you know, not Luxurious Cape, I play Grand Tree in my deck. If you go Luxurious Cape, you have 250 HP, which means your opponent has to use 2 Dusknoirs to KO an Aegislash. They only take 1 prize from that, though, because it needs to be KO'd from damage from an attack for your opponent to take that extra prize. So if they use double Dusknoir, they're giving you 2 prize cards for the price of 1. And it's stuff like that. It's living 1 Dusknoir, getting KO'd by 2. It's such a good deck. I'll also put it in C. It's insanely rogue. It's not a popular deck. This, as of right now, is my post-rotation deck. And it's nuts. It's phenomenal. I definitely wanted to lead off with it because there's a lot I needed to get off my chest about it. But like you said, your opponent can either attack it or they can't. And chances are, even if they can attack it, they don't have enough to win through attacking like 3-4 of them. So yeah, I definitely have this top of C deck. One of the best rogue decks I've played in such a long time.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Word. Next up, Ancient Box.
Ancient Box?
Yeah.
I got it. See, I can't put it in A tier, but because everything else in A tier cooks it, but I got it towards the top of B tier. Ancient Box is always a solid pick. I think that it hits decent numbers pretty quickly. Yeah. And I really just enjoy Ancient Box. I mean, I don't play the deck, so I'm not like in depth with it. But I have seen it played still. I mean, I went to locals recently. People were talking about it. People were loving it. And whether or not you play it with the 2-Prizer Roaring Moon or not is also like a really big staple because, you know, you can toss in the double Prizer Roaring Moon into Ancient Box. You're probably not going to be as consistent with it.
I think the better Roaring Moon is tech is Petra on EX. I've spent a lot of time playing Ancient Box too. I do like this deck. I think it swings okay into a lot of matchups. Like you said, it doesn't swing into a lot of at least our A tier matchups. I have it at mid B for that. But I think Petra is better because you still have a phenomenal late game attacker with it. But it's a switch pivot, which helps so much against decks like Stall, Guardy, stuff like that can kind of wall out certain Pokemon. But yeah, no, I like B tier. I like B tier for this deck. It's a single prize deck. It can hit hard, one shot pretty much any single prizer you throw at it. It could consistently 2-shot every single 2-prizer in the game. Like that's really all you need with a single prize deck, and this deck gets that job done very well. So yeah, no, I like that. Mid upper B, definitely a solid pick for Ancient Box. Next up, another one of the rogue decks for the day. We got Arceus Armor Rouge. I don't know if you know much about this deck. I know a lot. I love Arceus deck so much.
I mean, you're the Arceus guy, so I can't blame you at all for that. I haven't seen this deck.
This is my upper B pick rogue deck. I think this deck is phenomenally well positioned. If you don't know how it works, use Arceus as your main setup engine to get those initial attacks going. Starbirth, one of the best abilities, one of the best V-Star powers ever placed in the game. Search for 2 cards. You use that to set up, you know, a couple extra Arceus, like an Arceus and then a benched one. You have Magma Basin to get extra energy at a discard onto Pokemon, like, you know, Entei, Gouging Fire, oh my god, why am I Delphox V? You know, there's a whole bunch of good fire Pokemon that can attack, but more importantly with this deck, you play a lot of Luminous Energy so that you can set up Pokemon like Iron Hands and Monkey Dory insanely well. This deck has a lot of bulk with 280 HP that can do well into Dragapult, and then when you pair that with, you know, cards like Monkey Dory that can take damage counters off and Luminous Energy to put onto Iron Hands, and then you could use Armor Rouge to move all the fire energy to Iron Hands, you could take huge KOs against decks like Gardevoir, against the early game Dragapult before they evolve all their Pokemon, and I think that's one of the strongest things about Arc Armor Rouge, and it's done a very good job at taking down a lot of the top decks right now, so I do have this one in upper B. I don't know if you have more. Do you want to jump in on that, or
I like the idea. I like the concept. Anything with Arc is just gonna it's gonna perform.
You know, it's consistent.
It's consistent. Yeah. Just grab whatever you want. Yeah. 2 of whatever you want. I mean, I can't really see this. You know, being. I mean, I haven't played it, so I have no idea.
It's very slept on. You know, I think you have to remember how many tech cards you could stick into an Arceus deck by default. Thornton is one of the most underrated cards in this deck because, again, like that play I was talking about where you could set up energy. If you set up energy onto a bunch of Arceus V, and then your opponent's like, okay, like, you know, next turn, like, you're a Dragapult player, you're thinking next turn, okay, you know, I need to get one Dragapult evolved in the active, and then I'm chilling, you know, I'll swing, I'll do some good damage. You're not going to one-shot Arceus V-Star, but you can put some good damage counters on places, set up future KOs and, like, you know, other Pokemon, whatever you want. Next turn, all they have to do, Counter Catcher, Thornton, Iron Hands in the active, all of a sudden, now you're taking 2 prizers on a Dracloak. And they're moving the damage counters off that Iron Hands so that you still have to 2-shot it, essentially. That's, like, how this deck runs. It runs on picking apart what your deck is bad at. If you can't one-shot a lot of Pokemon, you're going to lean into Arceus a little more with the bulk. If you're playing a evolving deck, you could just bully them with Iron Hands very easily. And I think that's one of the most underrated things about this deck. I think it's very efficient at picking apart the niche ways to take out certain decks.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a cool one. It's hard to play. Of all the Arceus decks, this one is a little weirder. It uses Armarouge to set up not fire Pokemon. You just move fire energy from your bench to your active, and with that ability, you have access to so many attackers. So it's definitely a fun deck. Yeah, I like it in upper B, though. I think it's got a lot of backing, too. The few people that have played it do relatively well. They're usually pushing out like top 8 performances if you run this deck into tournaments, and I think that's because it's got a lot of good matchups right now, like I said. So yeah, like the deck. And Radzard, epic single prizer.
True.
Like, you know, you got one of the best single prize attackers arguably ever printed. So you got that going for you too. Next up,
Can't get mad at that.
yeah, next up we got Arch Duraludon. Nope, that's the same thing. Arch Dialga. Arch Aladin Dialga.
I mean, it's always going to be an amazing deck. I feel like because of the amount of, like I said last time, there's so much of it going around. I have to put it in bulk of the meta for that reason. It's still a really good pick, very consistent. It powers itself. It's its own engine. I mean, Dialga is going to be leaving, but Arcaladin itself can stand the test of time. I mean,
better, actually.
It might even get, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Post rotation, it loses a lot of the rougher cards that can deal with a lot of it.
But
So
do so many other decks, and you can bully Turo more post rotation, and I think this deck is really gonna take off, more than it is now. Definitely a deck worth investing into. Also a great deck to play until rotation. Like you said, I like this deck in B tier, like upper B as well. You're gonna tank a lot. If you can't one shot a lot with the Dialga V-Star, you can start Chronos, take some extra prize cards. Very, very strong, very powerful, very bulky.
and that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like it. I like that in B. Snorlax Stall. The last time
Snorlax Stall.
we'll talk about it.
I still got an NA. I think
It's
people have always been forgetting about Stall. It's that one thing that's in the back of everyone's head. They know it exists. They've played it so many times, and yet they still stop teching for it. You guys.
This is the last month to tech for it. Just do it out of principle. Do it
Exactly.
out of principle, because this is the last time you're gonna deal with this deck. Like, you have 1 month to be terrorized by not retreating until they inevitably reprint some other block Pokemon in the future. But like you said, you forget about this deck, it destroys the format, and I think right now this has overall some of the best win rates into so many decks because we're not teching for it again. And honestly, as one of the last times this deck could be played, I wouldn't ask for a better time to play Snorlax. It's gonna rotate. This deck has always been slept on, quite literally. This is a good time to pull it out again. I like this in A. Anything big you need to throw in, or?
I mean, Snorlax is pretty big itself, but I mean, like
Well said, bro.
Stall. I mean, play it. Give it one last game of Stall, just to, even if you hate it, just build the deck, run it on the ladder.
You have to
Ruin someone's night. Just ruin somebody's night. Have someone go to sleep angry. That's the mentality.
Gotta burn off some frustration from work. Stall. Eating dinner,
Had a
sitting on
long
the
day.
toilet. Stall. Like,
Word.
just-
Somebody made you upset today, and you feel like there's nothing you could do about it. Pass that on to somebody
That's
else
what I'm
and
saying,
sit there,
bro.
giggle maniacally as you boss up their Radiant Greninja while they play Gardevoir.
That's real.
Just pass.
And they Ultra Balled that Turo early for no reason. Like, yo, some days you wake up, you can't spread positivity, you just gotta crash out. Stall. This is the deck. This is the deck for that day. Do it very peacefully. You still get that evil part of you out that, you just gotta let burn some days. It's a good deck to play. It's got a lot of great matchups. It's swinging over 50% win rate into so many decks right now, including, I think, the rest of the decks I had in A tier, with the exception of one, which we'll get into in a bit. Yeah, in a little bit. Yeah, no, definitely bring this out one last time. Give it one last show. Next up, though, we got our Dusknoir Badoo deck, another rogue deck that I think is still relatively well positioned.
I got this, and I can't give it the A spot because the A spots also just like have a rough time. I mean, Badoo Dusknoir has a rough time going against the other decks that have an A. Got to put it in the B. Badoo Dusknoir is a force to be reckoned with. This little plant right here, this little thing that spreads poison pollen. It's going to be a menace, and it's going to be even more of a menace post rotation. And playing it with Dusknoir, you wouldn't think would be the greatest thing in the world, but they run so many other cards. They have poison variants and stuff like that to
I don't
hit
think
you
you
for...
need it. You just need that Blood Moon Arsenal
Exactly.
for the late
You
game.
don't
That's
even
it.
need it.
Yeah, just to sweep whatever is left, unfortunately, in the active after you triple Dusknoir. I think this deck actually, why I also had it in B, is because it deals with two of the A tier decks phenomenally. One of them being Snorlax is okay, but I mean, no surprise, we got Dragapult in there. That's one of the ones that I have in A tier. This deck cooks Dragapult like really bad, so I like it. I like it a lot. Also in B though.
Yeah.
Sarah up next.
Sarah, I mean, I've always had this thing in sort of like the bottom tiers. I have it in Rogue. I like the idea. I like the way it's played. I like the aggressiveness of it. I like the idea of throwing Palkia in and there as like a little sweeper, but...
Yeah, if you want. Like, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You got Palkia in the image, but it's more just like any Sarah build, period.
I just feel like there's a lot that you have to do to be able to start setting up attackers, and because it's a stage 1, you're going to have it out early, and while you're still setting up big damage, you can still get one-tapped by a whole lot of things. And that's the only thing that really holds this back, is it doesn't have the stage 2 HP.
Which I think is okay, because Goldengo exists. But unlike Togekiss, which should help get you off that odd prize or something like that, I think what this deck misses is a single prize attacker, since it doesn't run Togekiss. Like, it plays Radiant Greninja, which is why I think Palkia is kind of the better way to play it, because now you get access to a good single prize attacker. But more importantly, like, you don't play Radiant Charizard, you play Radiant Greninja because you don't have a draw engine that's consistent either. And I think that's the biggest thing that holds this deck back. You could live with less HP. You know, Raging Bolt does it. Raging Bolt has less HP, but Raging Bolt is more aggressive and faster. So,
and Raging Bolt is like a glass cannon deck.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
what Raging Bolt will do is send you to the discard pile probably twice before you can even start hitting the one shot on Raging Bolt.
Yeah.
I like the deck. It's fun. Play it on the ladder. Bring it to your locals. Have a good time. But I don't think it's anything that I'd bring to anything higher than like maybe even a. I don't think I'd bring it to like a League Cup. I think I'd just bring it to like a standard local tournament.
I don't think the deck has enough single prize options. We'll get it. Do I have that deck? Should be somewhere here, right? Did I forget Raging Bolt? Oh wow, I'm a bum. How did I do that? No, it's here. Yeah. All right. Well, while we're talking about it, where you got it?
Raging Bolt?
Yeah.
I got this thing in A. I think Raging Bolt is a phenomenal pick. Post-rotation, it's going to be even better. It's Raging Bolt, Dragapult, and Lily's Clefairy are going to be the top decks post-rotation easily. Raging Bolt gets better. Dragapult stays almost the exact same. You just swap out your V's with Pidgeot lines.
Yeah.
And Lily's Clefairy counters both and gets countered by both. I think that you have a holy trinity now.
That's fair.
But we're talking about this rotation. Raging Bolt has still always been a monster. It will continue to be a monster. Professor Sada, manual attach, and then just Teal Mask a whole bunch of energy, and you're doing fine for yourself. Raging Bolt is, I mean, it's got its own clothing set on live. I think that, you know, you have a couple rough matchups with Raging Bolt. It's going to happen with every deck in the format. Mm-hmm. You're not going to win everything. But what I will say is it's definitely worth picking up and playing again.
It's got a decent Dragapult matchup, and I think that's one of the most important things. I had this deck in upper B. I don't hate it in A. I don't know if I could do anything better than like lower A though. It just, certain matchups I don't like a lot. Like its Guardy matchup I don't like it a lot. Its Lugia matchup I don't like a lot. But then you look into decks like Goldengo's interesting. I think that one might be the most 50-50, but then it's like its Miraidon matchup is great, its Charizard matchup is great. You know, it could deal with like Hydreigon, it could deal with Pidgeot control relatively well, I believe. No, actually, because that deck just goes Mimikyu. Never mind, not that. It'd deal with Regidrago perfectly. And Roaring Moon, whoever wins the coin flip wins the game. So yeah, no, I like this in lower A. That makes sense. Yeah. Again, you have some rough matchups, like you said, but you have a lot of good ones. And in terms of investment for right now, I think that's another reason why this is a deck you should play, because that means then you own it, you're getting comfortable with it, and getting comfortable with the deck and then playing it through rotation is going to help you a lot. So I also like this in A. I think that's an underrated factor right now, and this might be one of the only times that comes up. So I like that. I like that.
I also like the Argalodon matchup.
Yeah, me too, because they can't Turo. A lot of Arch Aladdin relies on Turo to full heal, and this is a deck where it's like, I don't care how much HP you have, I don't care if you play Hero's Cape and you felt cool and quirky for doing it, I'm still gonna one-shot you. Very Raging Bolt.
Beautiful.
Next up, Charizard EX.
Charizard has been my deck for the longest time. I mean, I think as of now, I'm 8-0 with Zard at my locals. You know,
Yeah, that's true.
Not gonna say anything too crazy. It's just uber consistent. That's the thing.
That's the most
If you
important
just
thing in this
start
game.
off with a Charmander and a Buddy Buddy Poffin,
Yeah.
you can just Arvin for like rare candy or something, and then next turn, boom, your Zard's up, boom, your Pidgeot's up. And that's sort of like how my matches go with Zard. I either have a turn 2 Pidgeot or turn 2 Charizard, or maybe turn 3. Things happen. I might have to stall with Badoo for a turn.
Oh no!
But
one turn delay. It's like
oh
the
no!
worst. That's
And
the
then I'm
worst that
swinging at you
happens.
and then I'm killing you. Like that's
210,
it.
240 by that point. Like it's yeah.
Exactly. And it has everything it needs to do what it has to do. I mean, anything that has, oh no, I'm only hitting for 180 against a Dragapult, Dusknoir, and then you're hitting for more than enough.
Yeah.
You could start laying damage counters everywhere. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Grab whatever you want with Pidgeot. And the way I play Zard is I play with Neo Upper Energy. So if my Pidgeot gets stuck in the active by a stall player, I don't have to sit there and find 2 of the 5 energy I play. I could just Pidgeot for Neo Upper Energy and just tell them good night. Like, and everything is a stage 2. That's the best thing about Zard, aside from like Badoo, but you know. Everything is a stage 2. Everything can use Neo Upper. If I have to swing with Dusknoir, then I'm probably in a really rough spot. But I have the chance to swing with Dusknoir. First ever attack announced from a Dusknoir would be from me, and that's exactly how I want it to be.
That's so nuts. I had this deck in upper B, top of B actually. Let me rephrase. I had this deck in top of B tier. Like you said, it is so consistent. It's so strong. I don't think it could really fall lower than mid B, unless there's some huge change in the format that its matchups are atrocious. But I think it does have too many bad matchups to put it in A right now. Like Gardevoir is surprisingly hard, although you swing for weakness. They swing with only single prizers, that naturally makes it super difficult to deal with. I think Raging Bolt has always been kind of a rough matchup for Charizard, and I think Stall, another one of our A tier decks, is a awful matchup for Charizard, and that has always been one of Stall's best matchups. And when you look at certain B tier decks, like they get difficult too. Like Arch Aladdin brings a huge set of problems for Charizard if they loop Turo at the right time and they don't take a one-shot by utilizing Dusknoir. You know, if you get a good Star Chronos with Dialga, you know, same thing. If you got like Boss, Star Chronos, take 2 prizes on Rotom or Luminion, and then you can Metal Blast for enough to KO like a Charizard or another like Pidgeot or something like that, you know, it's hard. I'm not saying it's awful into a lot of decks, I'm just saying it's not perfect. And I think that's what keeps it in that B tier for me. It doesn't keep it in A going into the last month of this rotation.
Yeah.
But I like it. I gotta go for like 2 seconds, but we're on Dragapult, and I figured as our resident Dragapult player, you could definitely.
I'll take up some time for you.
Bro, I literally need 4 seconds, I'm sorry.
Nah, you're good.
Yeah, where do you have it? I'll put it there. I'm sure we got it in the same spot.
I have it in S. I have it in the BDIF spot, at least for now, and let me explain why. So Dragapult, as we know, does have the attack for 200 damage, and it spreads 6 damage counters on anything that you choose, in any way that you like. Now, when you're placing these damage counters, a lot of Pokemon, especially things like Pheasantipity, if you're going against Raging Bolt, they have 240. There's so many Pokemon in the form... I think Raging Bolt has 240. I could be mistaken on that. I haven't played against Raging Bolt in a while. But a lot of these EX attackers have HP that you can dwindle down to one-shots with Dragapult EX. Now, for example, let's say if your opponent's running something like a Charizard, or they're running, you're going against a mirror match, or something like that. A lot of these basic Pokemon that you search out with like Buddy Buddy Poffin, things like that, they'll have 60 HP. Maybe they might even have 50. Pidgeys, for example, have 60 HP, the ones that people run. Or they might even have 50 if you're running the Call for Family one. You can dwindle those down, and you can also place 10 on like a Fez. You can place 3 on a, or 4 on an Iron Hands, because I know that has 240.
230.
And what you can do is you can boss up something like that Iron Hands, hit it for 200, place like 2 on one Pidgey, 3 on the other, and you're taking 4 prizes in a turn. You can also use Dusknoir within your turn. to beef up that damage. Let's say you're going against, I've done this multiple times. I'll Dust Nor something on the bench that I do not like, or I'll just even Dust Clops. Because what I do is for post rotation, I'm running a 2-2-2 line of the Dust Nor, because I do like Dust Clops a little bit. Because if your opponent's playing stage ones, because Badoo's in the format, and they might not have access to rare candy, and a lot of people are running even just like one stage one through the stage 2 evolutions. You can Dust Clops onto that stage 1, throw like 2 damage counters on it, that's gone. Your opponent doesn't have that Zard, they don't have that Dragapult. Dracolock has 90 HP. You put the F4 on the Dracolock, you can throw 1 on a Pheasantipity, and you can throw 1 on something else, and then make sure that the next turn you can swing into something for 2 prizes. You already are playing a lot of Search. You have at least the current rotation decks. They're playing Luminions, they're playing Rotom Vs with the Forest Healstone. They're playing Radiant Charizard. They're playing things with the Pidgeot engine too. You have a lot of ways to get what you want when you want it. Your recon directives, you search through half your deck in a turn. And the thing is, you don't even have to shuffle your deck. You just put something at the bottom. So 3 times in a turn, you know, you can grab something like, oh, here's a rare candy. Here's 1 piece of the puzzle. Oh, recon directive. There's another piece of the puzzle. And you can just go ahead and put these pieces together and consistently. I mean, if you're starting off, there's no reason that you don't have a way to get Buddy Buddy Poffin. You're playing a crap load of Arvins. You're playing enough Ionos to sort of search through your deck even further. You're playing a lot of draw support. Your Pidgeots. You're playing so much. There's so much that you can play with this deck to make it consistent. And all you really need is just 1 Dreepy to start off with, 1 Badoo to start off with. You know, you can start off with a Fez, and it's going to be difficult. But, you know, you can just attach Retreat. You're playing Super Rods. You can afford to maybe lose an energy or 2 to attach Retreat. And
Sparkling Crystal too. So you don't
Sparkling
even need
Crystal.
2 energy on it
Exactly.
at some point. Yeah. I had this as my top A. I could do BDIF. This is the first time. The first time ever. Besides that one Drago, Reggie Drago game where he smacked the cards. That's the only other time I think we did BDIF. That's fair. This deck is tearing apart the meta statistically too. It's got the most wins, most top 4 placements, most top 8. It's got the highest percentage of those tournaments and 50 or more people in online in-person tournaments the past 2 weeks. This deck is so versatile. There's so many ways to play it. I mean, you hinted at that. You know when you were talking about playing things like Luminion, Rotom. Certain decks play Pidgeot, certain decks don't. Like your list doesn't play Pidgeot, I believe. Do you?
My current or post rotation? Post rotation, I do a 2-2 line.
Post rotation, you do. Current.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't in the current. It's just Dragapult, Dusknoir, which is really all you need. You don't need Pidgeot. So some decks do, some decks don't. Other decks play it with Iron Thorns. Other decks don't. Like, there's so many ways you could play Pidgeot. It's very surprising. You've got versatility in Radiance. You could play Radiant Alakazam. You could play Radiant Charizard. I think both work very, very well. Its matchup spread is phenomenal right now. I mean, in terms of the big hitting decks, you swing well into so many of them. And I think that's such a ridiculous task that not many decks can pull off. Yeah. No, I like that. I like that.
Exactly. And to sort of go off, 200 is a perfect number for Dragapult.
Yes.
Because Dusknoir allows you to put anything within 1-shot range. And that's sort of part of the reason we're seeing it everywhere. And sort of like I mentioned earlier, Dusclops on like stage 1s and stuff like that. You can essentially guarantee yourself a KO every turn as long as you're playing your cards right. I mean, this isn't an easy deck by any means. There's a lot that goes into it, and you have to it's not the hardest deck.
I think
I'm not gonna
it's easy to pick up conceptually. But I think its skill ceiling is higher than decks like Charizard. That's a bold statement. I'm going to stand behind it though. I think this deck is more versatile than Charizard, and I think with that versatility comes a higher level of difficulty to play it at a higher level. But I do think this deck can fare better against a lot of other decks. You also don't have to worry about weakness, which is really, really underrated. You have the Dusknoir in the deck, like you said, so you can manipulate the prize trade really, really well. You have access to more single prize options. Like, it's just as tanky, 320, 330. There's not much of a difference. Most decks can either 2-shot both consistently or 1-shot both consistently. You really don't see a drop-off in that 10 damage range. So, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I agree. I think this is the first clear BDIF that's like legitimately backed and not off like a community meme with someone getting excited over a Chicago V-Star after taking down a regional.
See,
I like
here's
this.
the thing though.
Yeah.
next rotation it's going to have a weakness.
True, but only if you play Lily's Clefairy. It's not like it'll have a weakness every match. It's not like every opponent you play is going to have a weakness. You know, it's just bringing back fairy Pokemon without bringing back the full fairy Pokemon, and I think that's problematic, but it also can one-shot Lily's Clefairy. It has 190 HP.
Exactly.
You know, so it's like, okay, you get one shot, you can one-shot them in return and set up damage counters. So if they don't evolve other Pokemon that they play in their deck, that's a problem. So, you know, I think, honestly, with rotation, I think this deck gets better. I think this is the best deck to invest in right now. I think it's the safest deck to invest in. The longevity this deck is going to see might be better than Charizard, honestly. And I think that's crazy to say, but it proves a point. And if you're that upset about it, you could even just play Charizard Dragapult, because that's a deck as well. Like, it's insane, yeah. I like this in BDIF. That's fair. That's fair.
And you don't lose anything with rotation, like, at all. Your rotation, you play 4-4-3, you play 2-2-2, Dusknoir line, you have 2 Badoos, a Fez, and I think that's it for your Pokemon. I mean, you don't really lose that.
Rotom, Lumineon, Force Seal Stone, but some decks already don't play those. You know, like, you already don't need them, which is insane. So, yeah, no, I agree with you.
Oh, no, you can't search out anything with Force Seal Stone. Get a Pidgeot. Do it every turn.
Yeah, you could just do
Who
a
needs a
Pidgey.
restart?
You don't need Rotom. It's not less consistent. It's not less fast. I think that's just less liabilities on the board. I see more pros out of not playing them right now anyways. So yeah, I like that. That's a good BDIF right now. That's a fair BDIF right now. And not in a toxic way either. This deck is still beatable. Like, it's not a BDIF like Silver Tempest Lugia or Mew VMAX. I think this deck has its counters. I think it's difficult. It's hard to play against, but they exist. It's there. You kind of need the numbers to work perfectly. You need a Pokemon with 70 HP base, like, minimum. You really can't play less than that. You got to be able to two-shot it consistently, but there's a lot of cards that can do that. Like, Arch Aladdin is one that comes to mind. Because you have 300 HP as well, you could tank a shot and play Turo and continuously disrupt. You don't have to worry about Duraludon being KO'd by even 2 Phantom Dives, which is nice. You have 130 HP. So, yeah. I think this deck is a fair, a respectable, a solid challenge, a great deck to play. Definitely BDIF. I like that. I like that a lot. You sold me.
I'm glad.
Next up, our Evolution decks, represented by Flareon.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. Just don't even bother. Like, if you want to have fun at a local, you want to have fun at a ladder. This is a local ladder deck. That's just what it is. Like, it's just not worth it. I mean, I set up my energy with Flareon, but I have a 2 retreat cost, and, you know, I'm only swinging for 280.
130 damage to set up 2 energy. It's
just don't do it to yourself. You are going to, if you hit Arceus with, like, an Evolution deck only from base to ladder, I need video evidence, and I will personally send you a Haxorus Hollow. Like,
So fire.
I will sign it myself.
Sorry, that caught me so off guard.
I was like, hold on, how do I not lose money on this? And I just stare at this candle and I just have a Haxorus Hollow sitting on it.
I don't know what I expected. It was not a Haxorus Hollow, though. That's crazy. Well, you heard it here. Video proof. You're getting a signed Haxorus Hollow. I'll sign it too, I guess.
Dude, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we got.
That's fair. I think the best Evolution deck I've seen has been that Jolteon Ogerpon deck that I made for the channel. Not just tooting my own horn, because I put a lot of time into making that combo. I just think it's the most consistent. It swings the strongest. You get the free retreat. It's kind of worse into Dragapult because you have 260 HP, but you at least swing faster, harder, quicker. And I think that's better. I still even think that's a D tier deck, maybe bottom C. I'm 280 as it's all hands on deck. This is my biggest attack. Is 280 is not enough right now, especially when the effect of that attack is you can't attack next turn with this Pokemon. Like, that's not good. Its top attack doesn't swing for enough. I got it in deep. We've talked about it before. No need to harp on it and knock it down farther. Next up, we got Future Box.
Future Box.
Yeah.
I have this in the Rogue for the reasons that it sort of had a big slump where you weren't hearing anything at all about it. There was a very big brick of time where like you saw Future Box on the ladder and you're like, okay, I know how to deal with this. But Future Box is sort of like making a little bit of a comeback. I sort of like the way that people are swinging into this right now. Future Box is great. You have access to Miraidon, which, you know, you throw on a couple Iron Hounds on the field. You throw your animal. Exactly.
Yes.
2 energy for 1 energy attachment. And you can boost the damage up. You're swinging like Flareon does with a single prizer and next to no setup.
So true. What?
You are Flareon, but so much better.
I didn't even think of that.
Where are you putting those energy? Iron Hands. Oh,
or Iron Valiant. It's not in this picture.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was necessary to create 2 decks out of it. We could talk about them with both. I think both sit and see. I think there's 2 ways to play a Future Box deck. I think both of them deal with the same set of matchups well and have the same problems into the same matchups, and I think that's really funny. Because usually with 2 very different variants, you see polar opposite matchup spreads. But you could play Iron Crown with Iron Hands, our normal Future Box deck, or you could play with Iron Valiant. And Iron Valiant does damage counter pings, which can take out your GPs, can take out your Charmanders, and then you attack and take your second prize card. Or you could just use Iron Hands and just straight up take 2 prize cards. I think both get the job done well. I think both struggle really, really bad into certain decks like Raging Bolt, for example, because Miraidon is a single prize attacker that can disrupt the prize trade. Doesn't do it consistently enough, though, because it doesn't swing hard enough to take 2 prize KOs often. Just deals with evolving decks very well. I think Dragapult and Charizard, if they have the perfect setup, become almost overwhelming because you can't play fast enough. There's pros and cons to both. I think this is a rogue deck, like you said. We're seeing a resurgence of it. We're seeing 2 ways to play it. I think both are very interesting. Both are pretty fun. Don't think we've branched into the B tier level yet. I think the popularity is getting close to maybe a bottom B tier deck. I think we just need to see a bit more on the performance side, a bit more on the matchup side for it.
Yeah, we're gonna need to see something at like a high level event, but it's very, very possible.
This could be a very underrated deck to play to a high level event, and you definitely could do well with it. I think for being a rogue deck, it's a better positioned one, and I think it's one, especially if you have experience playing it and you know the matchups well, and you know what Pokemon to target down, and you know which version you want to play, Iron Hands or Iron Valiant, and you can spend more time playing that. I think Iron Hands is easier to play. I think Iron Valiant is a little trickier, but could swing a little harder, and I think that could help you more. Iron Valiant also really only plays Psychic Energy, so you could just search those out with Miraidon, and you could use Iron Crown easier, which is also really, really good. Because then with Iron Crown, you do 50 damage to 2 Pokemon, so if you use your Iron Valiants well, you could set up a Radiant Greninja type attack multiple times over, and I think that's one of the most devastating things going into 2-prize decks like Charizard and Dragapult. So yeah, I like both versions of this deck a lot. I think both are solid. I personally like the Iron Valiant one better. I think the Iron Hands one is more consistent though, so it's easier to play. I don't know if it's more consistent. It's just easier to play, but still rogue and still good. So give it a go. Give it a go. Next up, the infamous Gardevoir EX.
Gardevoir, what's there to say that hasn't already been said? Gardevoir players you're losing refinement. Boo-hoo. Yeah, I mean, with Mega Gardevoir gonna be coming out soon, even today. Like, listen.
Good. I'm happy it's gone.
Yes, refinement, you have it. Have fun while you get it, because you still have an A-tier deck. When Mega Gardevoir comes out, you might have the best deck. You might have the BDIF.
I think it needs some sort of engine. I think this is an interesting deck to invest into. I think it's a bit of a gamble. I don't think this deck is going to hold its own very well post-rotation, because you lose Refinement, and with Refinement becomes the best way to get energy in the discard quick, and it's like, okay, sure, you could play this with Brilliant Blender. You still have to get Brilliant Blender in your hand, and this deck has relied on Refinement to get it whatever it needs in its hand, you know, and if you get Arven first turn, that's great, you're getting Buddy Buddy Poffin. I know you are, you are, you know, it's I think this is a good time to play it. I think it's an A-tier deck. It's got phenomenal matchups. If you don't already have Gardevoir, if you don't know how to play Gardevoir, I don't think this is the time to learn. I think this is only the time to play it if you've been playing it for a long time. It's got great matchup spreads. Awesome matchup spreads. You can dominate single prize attackers, attacking the bench or the active spot between Screamtails and Drifloon. it's just so hard to play, and I think post rotation this deck is only going to get trickier, it's only going to get harder, and I think the Gardevoir stands are really going to have to dig deep to pull this one out of the trenches again. So I know we said that last rotation, and here it is, still an A tier right before another rotation. I'm sure it'll happen again. I'm not putting my time and effort into figuring that out, though. I'm not a huge Guardy fan, but it's an A tier deck nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Japanese lists put it at like tier 2 or tier 3 even. Like, I remember a lot of Japanese players saying that, like, the deck isn't cooking post-rotation. And that's probably just because of, like, the dominance of things like Dragapult, Raging Bolt, Lily's Clefairy, things like that, just cooking everything.
Hop Zacian and Dragapult are two matchups that I think are going to be very difficult. I think Hop Zacian is attacking quickly, and it's pretty bulky, and I think that's going to be kind of hard to get around. And Dragapult is very self-explanatory. You've got single prize. You could dominate their single prize attackers with your Phantom Dive. You know, a good gust and then extra damage counters on their already weakened single prizers. You're taking 2-3 prize turns sometimes, and that's nuts. That's not counting a potential Briar as well. So I love this deck right now. I have it in A tier. I think it's got some great matchups. Don't invest right now though. Hold off. Wait. Yeah. There's better decks to invest into. Invest into Dragapult. Invest into Raging Bolt, even Charizard. I think those are 3 safer picks than Gardevoir right now to invest into.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Next up, another deck worth maybe investing into, Goldengo EX.
Goldengo, I got this thing in the bulk of the meta. This thing is coming out crazy right now.
Yeah.
Upper B, absolutely. I remember I said that, like, you know, a lot of people are not playing it with Togekiss anymore. So, like, my whole, like, coin flipping to maybe get an extra prize is sort of out the window. Goldengo is phenomenal on its own. It's doing really well. You get your Energy Surge Pro. You're one-shotting everything. You don't need to worry even for a second. And that sets you up for the rest of the game to grab energy retrievals, superior energy retrievals, and just keep hitting. You're not gonna miss it. You have coin bonus. You draw a card. If it's inactive, you draw another one. You draw another one. Then you keep drawing. And by doing that, you make sure that you have a steady stream of energy to hit. You're always going to be able to one-shot. I don't know what it is about Goldengo players that I personally play against, but whenever their hand says 7 or 8, it's all energy.
Doesn't matter what's in the active spot. It's getting torched. Easy. Very good deck. Very strong. Very consistent. Good. It's Sarah Ledge but better right now. And I think the reason being, you don't have a single prize attacker, but after taking enough KOs, you're going to flip heads once on Togekiss and get you the equivalent of using the single prize attacker. So I think, it makes up for not having the best one. And if you want one that bad, just play Scizor. Scizor with the free retreat Scyther is a perfect 1 energy attack cost single prize Pokemon that you don't mind evolving into. You're already playing a bunch of stage 1s anyways. Perfect upper B tier deck and very popular right now. One of the most popular times I've ever seen it be played. Certain online tournaments, some bigger ones as well. This is the most popular deck played, so it's interesting to see the resurgence of Goldengo at a time I honestly didn't expect it much. But yeah, I like this in upper B for what you said.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're going to play a deck, if you have the cards, give it a shot. It might be for you. Yeah. I was a Chien-Pao player, so Glass Cannon decks are sort of like my bread and butter a little bit.
They definitely are.
So, but, I've moved on to bigger and better
Stage
things.
2, literally bigger. Literally bigger things.
Bigger.
Buddy just goes into more and more evolving decks the more I play with him. Like, if there's a level to evolve more, I bet he'll move to that. We get break cards back, or the equivalent of evolve. Another time, you'll see Avery switch up to those two. So...
Hey, I'm just saying.
I respect it.
I would have much preferred breaks over megas, but we'll talk.
Or
we'll talk
the
that.
Mechanic. That's another rant. Another rant. Yes.
That's a different type of thing.
It's another episode.
I might just record an unhinged, just like 15-minute video of me going wild on the Pokemon Company. But I feel I don't want to burn potential bridges early.
Idea. I'll bring it up after this episode. Not an episode idea. It's for an episode. I'm not going to bring that up on the episode. Anyways, Goldengo. It's upper B tier.
Play it. Have
Play
fun.
it. Play the String
Enjoy
Cheese
it.
Boy. Hydreigon. Where do you got that guy?
I love this deck. Me personally, if I'm, not to toot my horn, but if I'm piloting it, I'm putting it in A. But from what I've seen of people playing it, it's got to stay in C or D. People haven't.
Lower B.
It's sad. I haven't seen much Hydreigon from anybody, and usually when they're playing it, they're not as uber consistent, and that's just down to like people not playing it enough. People I've been replied to on Twitter, like people have been like, "Yo, this deck is garbage. Why are people playing it?" Have you seen the wave?
It's so good. I love
You have
this
two
deck.
of the most goated attacks in the game. Discard 3 cards, you're hitting for 200. If you're down a prize, which you're probably gonna be because you play Dusknor in it a little bit, you get 1 energy with counter gain. You're telling them discard 3 cards. You have Obsidian, which tells them, hey, those lovely support Pokemon, you better pick them up with Turo. You have to pick them up, or you're going to lose 2 or 3
You can pick one of them,
exactly,
which is the problem. Yeah, I think the most underrated thing about Hydreigon, you go Crashing Headbutt, you already have 2 energy down, right? So use Crashing Headbutt. Dark, and doesn't matter what. We'll say Psychic for this example, Dark Psychic. Swing 200, let's say 200 on Dragapult EX, right? Your next turn, you go Crispin, or just manual attach Sparkling Crystal. You use Obsidian, you KO, take 2 prizes on the active Dragapult. Dragapult does not play Manaphy. You take out, you take out a bench Dracoloak and a Dusknoir line, or Duskull, Dreepy, something like that, or put the damage on some other support Pokemon like Pidgeot or something like that. Make it easy to boss KO. You could take 3 prize cards in a turn, 4 prize cards, 6 prize cards, so easily for no reason, and I think that's the most slept on thing.
exactly.
With Hydreigon, or you can play with Neo Upper and get that same thing off that manual attachment I mentioned. I don't think Sparkling Crystal, Neo Upper. Personally, I actually tried it with Sparkling Crystal, and I liked that a lot because Crashing Headbutt, 200 damage for 1 energy, doesn't feel fair. Not like it
True.
doesn't, and I love it. And I think it essentially provides the same exact effect as Neo Upper. You get both. You're attacking for 1 energy, if you will. But yeah, this is a deck I personally want to invest into right now before rotation. I do have pretty high hopes for this deck. I think it's going to perform very well. I think it's too strong and people are sleeping on it too much. So I like Hydreigon a lot. Yeah.
If I was to personally, like, everything else aside, I would put it in A tier. I think this deck is amazing. I think that if you pilot it correctly, if you play it with Pidgeot and like a 2-1-2 Dusknoir line, you're going to go to places. This is something that you have to play. You can't just look at it and say, oh, this is good, this is bad. You have to actually interact with this kind of a deck. It's not Raging Bolt.
It's got a higher skill floor than most decks. It's difficult. It seems easy, and its its concept, which is fair. I think a lot of Pokemon decks seem easy, but when you actually sit down and play a match, like, the decision making comes out hard, and it's I think that's where a lot of people think this deck is garbage. This is a bit more of a time investment than other decks. It is so much easier to play decks like Golden Go. It is so much easier to play decks like Snorlax Stall. It's so much easier even to play Dragapult. And we talked about how Dragapult is a different deck. Or a difficult deck. Excuse me, not a different deck. It's a relatively difficult deck to play. I think Hydreigon's harder than Dragapult. I don't think it's the hardest deck in the format to play by any means. I think there's some decks that are plenty harder than Hydreigon. I'm not trying to say it's impossible to play. I just think comparatively, there's easier decks to play where you could get to the same insanely high skill level, like Dragapult EX, another stage 2 Brawlic Terra attacker. There's decks like that I think do better, and I think that's more consistent and better to play. There's more research on the deck, more people are playing it. I think 4 energy scares too many people away too quickly, but it's good. It's definitely good. I think, not talking about the deck as a whole, I think if I was playing this, I personally had it in like mid B, lower B, for the same reason. I think there's a lot of positive matchups right now. You're going to swing well into evolving decks with Obsidian. You're going to 2-shot everything consistently because you do 200 damage. Milling 3 cards is almost Great Tusk Mill, which is a mill deck. That's gross. That's awful. And you're doing 200 damage. That's too good to sleep on. So
for 1 energy, or maybe even just your Neo Upper,
which is just 1 energy. It's the same manual attached swing. Like, it's just 1 effect. It's so good.
Exactly.
It's so good.
And
yeah.
Click the affiliate link in the description for TCG Player. Order yourself a 4-1-3 line and just have it. Just have it just in case. I already have. I have the whole line coming on the way. I'm probably gonna bring it to like league challenges, league cups, and stuff like that. People are sleeping so crazy, and we need to hit them with a wake up slap. All right, we need to do it.
I agree. Next up, we got a few left, but some of these are pretty quick. We got Iron Thorns EX, a pretty quick one right now.
Yeah, I mean, I got Iron Thorns in sort of like the bulk. I think that there's a lot of people playing Iron Thorns right now. It's not bad. It's also not the best.
I have it in don't play. I think this deck is atrocious right now. Dragapult, worst matchup ever. You're looking at a stage 2 non-ability attacker. Doesn't rely on many rule box abilities if you don't want to. You don't need Pidgeot. You can play without it. What you're 3-shotting Dragapult, you're getting 1-shot most of the time after they attack the first time instead of damage counters. Not good. You look at Gardevoir. All Gardevoir has to do is play a Klefki or Fluttermane, which many of the high-level Gardevoir players do for this matchup. You put that Pokemon in the active, shut down the Iron Thorn's ability, you use Gardevoir's ability, you retreat for 1 energy, you promote Drifblim back to the active, boom, 1-shot. You're trading 1 Prizers into 2 Prizers relatively easily. Raging Bolt's always been a scary matchup for the deck. Stall plays to Mimikyu. Problem solved. You know, a lot of the B tier decks, I think you could take some of those. I think that's fair. You know, look at our rogue decks, dude. What is this deck going to do against Hydreigon? What is this deck going to do against Aegislash? I don't think this is the time to play Iron Thorns. I think there's actually too many non-ability rule. There's a lot of rule box Pokemon. Not many of the big ones rely on the abilities in an insane way. And I think that's why you shouldn't play Iron Thorns as by itself right now. I think if you want to play Iron Thorns because you solo certain matchups like Lugia, you should pair it with Dragapult, and I think that's the better way to get your Iron Thorns fix in. I don't think Raw Dog Iron Thorns is the way to go though.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking about the Dragapult.
Yeah, the Dragapult is so strong, and one of the worst matchups for Dragapult is Lugia V-Star, which I'm just going to jump into right after this. I'm just going to throw it in A right now. Iron Thorns destroys Lugia. I'm not going to sleep on that. And Lugia does very well into Dragapult. If that's something you're worried about as a Dragapult player, play Iron Thorns Dragapult. I don't think raw Dragapult is the way, though. So, yeah. Now jumping into Lugia, this is back to A tier. I mean, if you look at the format we got, you have always swung well into Stall. Nothing changes. You play 4-Jet Energy. Almost every single thing in your deck can attack for a gross amount of damage. The addition of Regigigas means that you could use Cinccino to blow up 1 Dragapult, and then you could use Regigigas to blow up a 2nd Dragapult. You could do the same thing against Charizard. Problem solved. That's 4 prize cards at the cost of 2. Gardevoir is not bad. You can trade single prizers galore. You could even use your Archeops in the late game to deal with their single prize Drifloom that KO'd your Lugia. It's like, you've got more single prize options than you know what to do with in a deck like this, and when you're up against a deck like Gardevoir that doesn't have a lot of HP on many of its bigger attackers like Drifloom, after they attack, you're not worried at all. You could also Saw Block and play like Snorlax Stall, which is a very underrated way to play. You get that DTE attached to Wellspring Mask Ogerpon. You're chilling against so many decks. Raging Bolt, same thing. Cinccino, Regigigas, Takeover. I got it in A tier. Honestly, this might be my top pick in A tier. If Dragapult's in BDIF, I might put Stall right under this one. I love Lugia right now. I think Lugia is the way to go, closing out the format. And I think my A tier, consisting of Lugia and Stall, although I hate both decks for their own reasons, this is the last time they're going to be in the format. I think this is a good time. Give them their last hurrah. I respect the hustle. I respect it. But I got him.
Minccino is probably one of the greatest backup attackers we've had in a probably period. Yeah.
Either that or Regigigas, which might arguably be better. Because it's a single prizer that can deal with Dragapult by itself. But I agree. And that's what I mean. You play both so easily. Perfect deck right now. So, yeah. A tier.
Get one last shot on live. Play the Silver Tempest version, even if you want to. Just do it.
So real. Cloth up next.
I'm seeing so much more Cloth now. I have it in the bulk of the meta for that specific reason. It feels like almost every other game on live, I'm playing against a Cloth Donk deck or something like that.
Me too.
And I mean, I respect the hustle, I respect the grind. Cloth is not to be slept on. I mean, I just don't personally enjoy playing it. But to those who play it, you guys have... You do a whole lot in your turn, which I can respect. There's a whole lot of cards that are being read by you and not me, because
in your
I'm
first
probably gonna...
2 turns though. Not
I'm
past that. Past that, it's just attach DT swing. Like,
I got my phone on my lap. I'm just scrolling through Twitter and I'm just waiting for you to say pass, or I'm waiting for you to announce a knockout. Like, you do have your Orangaroos, whatever you want. Just do it. Just yep, got it. Do it. Yep, go ahead. Play 3 supporters. I won't notice.
I always sleep on the fact that this deck can win so many games by going first and taking KOs with Petron. And when you're up against a format dominated by cards like Dragapult and Gardevoir, that's very, very easy to pull off some cheesy matches. And I think that's very respectable. Even Goldengo Charizard, look at a lot of the decks I'm putting above Cloth. I've got it in upper B tier because I don't think it has the longevity that other decks have. I think this deck runs out of steam kind of quickly. It kind of wants to overwhelm you before you can react and do anything. I think that's what puts it in the upper B tier. I could argue for higher in B tier. Like, I think this could be the best deck in B tier. I don't think Charizard, Goldengo, and Cloth. I think it's take your pick on what you want in the top 3 of B. I think both all deserve that spot well. But yeah, I like Cloth there. I agree.
And it's really unfortunate what happened to Natalie at EUIC. I mean, like, sort of like I mentioned before.
God, yeah.
Literally just starting with a single GP in the active spot, lost both her games. She played maybe 2 whole turns.
Yeah.
It was really, really upsetting to see.
Yeah. Because I think so many people, it just happens where you only lead one Pokemon, and you're like, oh, I'm fine, I got Buddy Buddy Poffin in hand. This deck doesn't care, because by the time you use Buddy Buddy Poffin, your active's been knocked out, game over. I think that's such a slept-on way to win games, and I love Claw for that. And if your opponent has a deck like Lugia V-Star where they could lead Lugia, you could just choose to go second and just swing harder with Unhinged Scissors going first. So it's like you have the versatility to go first or second and still donk your opponent. That's crazy. So I love Cloth right now. Great deck. Next up, Lost Box.
I like Lost Box.
Me too.
I got it in upper B.
Me too.
I think Lost Box is like, it's having its grand, it's showing right now.
Yes.
It's last push for A tier.
That's what I was
it
waiting
wants
for.
it.
Lost Box, Lugia, Snorlax Stall. If that's how we're closing out this format, so be it. That's fine. We'll do this.
Closing it as it began, which is poetic.
Yep. I hate it. I've hated these 3 decks at so many different points in my life. I've played 2 of them so many different points in my life. But they have their last go. This is it. They're all in good spots. Again, please don't invest into them. They're all rotating. But if you have them, give them a go. This is another deck that could take down some matchups very, very well. Matchups like Dragapult, Gardevoir. You could take Lugia. You've been taking since the dawn of time. Lugia and Lost Box have been fighting for which deck is the best. Raging Bolt, you've got single prizes that could do well into it. Charizard is a kind of difficult. Same thing with Dragapult. I think Dragapult's harder than Charizard, but same thing. Same concept. It's just Dragapult's damage counter spread is harder to deal with. But I love both. Both are awesome. Definitely give it a go. Next up, Miraidon. Ooh, back 4.
Miraidon.
Yeah.
Ooh. I got this thing in B. I think Miraidon's in a decent spot.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are bringing it out now. You hit your generators, you get your Iron Hands ready, and next thing you know, like your stage 1 or even your basic is just getting knocked out.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's a donk deck. It's quick. You can take 2 prize cards with Iron Hands. You can swing harder with Raikou, turn 1 if you need to do that. Lugia's back on top, so that's always been a good matchup for Miraidon. I like this. I've got it in lower mid-B, but I like it. I like it a lot. Not a bad time to bust Miraidon out.
Mm-hmm. And I got it there because if you miss your generators, you are going to have a really bad time.
Yeah, I agree. I like that, though. Good placement for Miraidon. Next up, Pidgeot Control.
I mean, it honestly depends on who's piloting this. If you're not All Out Blitzel, I'd say it's in the Rogue category.
Or King Heracross. If you're not one of those two, yep. I have this at Rogue. I've got it right under Agislash. I think the format has stabilized a little bit. I think you could kind of pick apart how you want to deal with certain decks. I just think there's some decks that have always been very hard for Pidgeot to control, like Gardevoir comes to mind. Lugia is kind of difficult because it's so versatile with its attackers as well. Those are always kind of hard to work with, but I like it at top of C. I think it's a great Rogue pick. I think if you know how to play it, this is going to be one of the hardest decks in the format to play. Not because the playstyle is hard, it's creating it, and then creating it to know how to deal with ex-opponents. It's just such a weird way to think about the game that I could go into a whole hour-long rant on how to play control decks. I love control decks as well. I don't specialize them like Blitzel or King Heracross. I'm not going to preach and say I'm at their level, but I've spent a lot of time creating those types of decks, understanding how they operate, and I consider myself a relatively good control player. I don't know if this is a format I'd want to control, and I think that's what kind of you were saying feeds into a C-tier deck.
Yeah.
You have to be a god of control right now to take this to a high-level tournament. Not impossible, though. it's won a couple tournaments. It's gotten top 4, top 8 at certain tournaments by players other than those two that we mentioned. And I think those are the players that you see, like, they play Control all the time. They know how this works. They know what they're going for. But the lists are all different. It's hard to run right now. So, yeah, I'll proceed. I like it. Second to last, Regidrago V-Star.
Don't play it. Regidrago is in... It had its rise, and it's having its fall. This thing went from bulk bins to top. It's back in the bulk bins. I mean,
that's
it's
poetic
people figured it out.
It's more. It came with a vengeance. It took over formats like you wouldn't believe, and it will have its quiet, peaceful exit just like its entrance. And I think that speaks volumes when you step back and think about it.
If we want to put this into VGC terms, Regidrago is your HM slave that was the last Pokemon while you were fighting the Elite Four. It was your Bidoof.
Real.
It was your Bidoof. It was your
Real.
Pidgeot. You brought it out. You hit the last Pokemon. But you know what happened after the Elite Four? You didn't touch this thing after you went to the Pokemon
But
Center.
it was still in the, like, championship screen that you get right after.
You took that fire screenshot.
Yeah. It was there. It was there. It got you there. It didn't win you it, but it got you there. Regidrago, don't play it. Now's not the time. Its matchup spread is pretty rough right now. It doesn't go well into a lot of donk decks like Miraidon, like Raging Bolt. Dragapult's kind of harder because Dragapult is taken off with Dusknoir right now. Lugia has always been difficult because it can use Regigigas to one-shot Ogerpons. It can use Minccino to one-shot your Regidragos itself. You can two-shot each other with Lugia with different attackers. You know, it's not good enough. Stall obliterates this thing. Cloth is not great either because you can attack turn 2 and take a massive KO on different Pokemon. Goldengo, same thing. It's another turbo deck. It's just, I don't know. It's such a weird spot for Regidrago right now. I don't think swinging 280 with your hardest attack with Giratina V-Stars is enough. I think that's the worst part of this deck right now. So don't let it go quietly. Let it go the way it entered the format. Let it go peacefully. Yeah. Last up, Roaring Moon.
I got it in C. I think that Roaring Moon had a really good time.
Yeah.
But so many things especially with like even Dusclops. You put a Dusclops on a Roaring Moon, guess what? Frenzy Gouging, they don't have access to it.
Yeah.
And what are they gonna swing for? 220? That's not one-shotting anything. And because you already Dusclopsed it, it has less than 200. Half the decks in the format hit that just by blinking. You know, like, and almost every deck is running the Dusknoir line.
Yeah.
So like Roaring Moon had its really good time where you could Frenzy Gouging V-Stars, Vs, things like that, and not really be worried about leaving yourself open to being a one-shot. But with so many things out there that are putting damage in different spots, you know, Roaring Moon is in a really rough spot. I think it's still fun if you're gonna go on the ladder and you're like, oh, I'm gonna do this, do that, and you go through all these convoluted steps to one shot, and it's like your opponent already conceded like 8 cards ago. Like you did all of that for nothing.
That's some amazing points. I also have this deck in C tier. I don't think we really need to harp more on it. There's not much more to add. It's a Dusknoir heavy format that is never good for Roaring Moon. So yeah, it's gonna wrap it up for our last tier list with Sword and Shield cards ever. It's kind of sad, honestly. This podcast started with Sword and Shield cards. Honestly, it's named Battle VIP Pass is a Sword and Shield card. So for this podcast to go through now a phase where that card has not just rotated, but the entire Sword and Shield era is behind us as of right now, podcast wise, it's sad, man. But I'm happy to see some of these decks where they are. I think this is kind of a fun format. I think at first I felt it was a little stale, but I think with Dragapult up top, it's actually shaken up enough things where now we see some more diversity coming back out. And we have like a king to beat. We have Dragapult to take down. That's like that's the deck you need to deal with. The deck that you know you're gonna play against. So I'm happy to see this tier list, make this the last one. It's a solid one.
It's gonna be so sad.
Yeah, now, Avery, would you like to explain the rules for Who's That Pokemon, the last part to this episode while I get the...
So, welcome to Here's That Pokemon, the last segment of the podcast where Chris is going to send me a snippet of a Pokemon card that is within the format, and I am going to never guess it, and whenever I do it, I don't get a chance.
That's crazy. So, you get 7 questions. Have to be card related. I've chosen a card. For those of you who have watched many episodes before, I have now treaded into completely uncharted waters. Avery, here is... That's the image. I almost sent you the entire card. I had this sitting here. I just looked at it again.
Alright, let me open up my notepad.
Here is the clip of the card. You're either going to get this instantly or you're not. I have included part of the attack in the card. I just wanted to see what happens. Let me pull up the image now for everyone on the podcast to see. Avery, I will tell you if you want to start your guesses to go for it. Yeah, if you want, it's up there. I'm just changing the sizing so it fits a little better. But you're good.
I've never seen this. I've never seen it, so this is gonna be fun.
Okay. All right, that's good.
All right. Question number 1.
Yeah, I'm just trying to drag this guy around. Yeah, what's up? Give me that first.
Is this a Sword and Shield or Scarlet and Violet card?
This is a Sword and Shield card.
Is this Pokemon a support Pokemon?
No.
Is this Pokemon an attacking Pokemon?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with no. And I can explain that if at the end of this I need to explain why I said that. I'm gonna go with no.
Does this Pokemon have an ability?
I pulled up the wrong image on the video. Yo, I'm such a bum. I'm like, that's the whole card, isn't it? Well, this is the clip you can see, guys. You guys all know.
It's fine, I can't see it.
Yes, Avery had the right clip, thank God. Oh, Chris and multitasking, never been friends. Here is the clip Avery's looking at. Now that you guys know what the card is, yeah, we'll see if he gets it together, I guess. I'm sorry, what was that question?
I'm gonna be honest, does this Pokemon have an ability?
No.
Okay, so I'm 4 down.
Yes. That's so funny. I don't know if I've done that yet. I think that's a new mess up. Let's go.
Has this card been used in any of the decks within a tier list?
No.
Oh, wow, I'm cooked. Okay.
No. Do you mean today or ever?
Like, within today's tier list?
Oh, no.
Okay.
It might have been in one. Maybe. I don't remember, to be honest. It would be an earlier tier list if it was.
Have you played this card in any decks as of recent, within like the last month?
Recent,
on your
no.
channel? All right.
So many no's. You have, what, one more question?
I think that was it, because I asked generation, attacking or supporting, whether it has an ability, and then I asked, is it
recent video?
Was it used on the tier list and then in the video? Yeah, so that's all 7.
So that's, I can't count. I just counted to 5 on stream. Yeah, that's so awkward. Oh, because you said and 1, and I just marked that as 1. Yeah, okay. Sure, I guess. I have no idea where I went wrong. I couldn't count. What we got? 3 guesses. For you to guess the card that everyone knows what it is, because I don't know how to do this YouTube stuff still.
Is this Pokemon, Galarian Weezing?
It is not.
Oof.
It's gonna be guess number 1. After your second guess, I will give you a hint. Oh, also, part of the Pokemon has to be in every clip for everyone wondering. And if you're looking on the video, which I know you guys are, unless you guys are just listening along, that's fine. I'm circling the part where this Pokemon is.
Yeah, because I see a bike, but like I'm trying to figure out what.
You do in fact see a bike. What we got?
I'm trying to think. I'm thinking so hard.
The thoughts are thinking. That is for sure.
My brain is for sure on.
I know you've seen this card
two
too.
shoes.
I know
I'm
you've seen this
seeing the bike. I don't see anything. Is this Solosis? Because that's the only thing I can imagine for the green part.
Great guess. It's not Solosis or any form of that evolution line. Phenomenal guess. This will be your last hint. If my memory serves correctly, Solosis is in the same generation this Pokemon is in, and I chose this Pokemon because of what you're playing in your free time right now.
Oh,
Buddy's gonna kill me. I was like, look, if I'm losing, if this is the last tier list episode with Sword and Shield, I am picking who's that Pokemon with a Sword Shield card. And I'm like, what is a really funny one I could do that'll really make you upset? This is the best I got. Because I know you've seen this card before too. I made sure that I knew, and I knew because someone has sent this in the Discord chat, and you've responded to it. I searched it.
word?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You're not
this.
gonna.
Like,
It was really long ago.
I'm seeing green. That's all I see. Okay.
It do be green. It do be green. You got one guess. I'll give that to you. She's green. She's green. I'll give you one more hint as well. This is one of the people in like our close circle that come over. You know, like one of our best friends.
Yeah.
This is one of his favorite Pokemon. One of them. I don't know if you'll know who or that it was, but if you do, that hint would give it to you. Paired with the other hints I've given you.
There's a good amount of people that come through.
There is, and I said he,
And-
so you know it's not like Jesse or
Yeah.
Rachel. That's it. that's really, or like
They all
hardly,
got
yeah.
favorites.
They do, and I feel like I'm trying to think if he said this to you at any point I can remember. I don't know. I don't know. I'll give you one last hint, and it's gonna give it to you, and I'm okay with that. Do you remember the Applebee's girl and what color she had dyed in her hair? That a certain someone whose favorite Pokemon this may or may not be fell apart.
Like,
Do you remember what color her hair was dyed?
I don't. I remember that.
Okay,
she
it was
had-
green. Good job. It was green. Well said. It's green. It's from a gen that you know very well right now. This is the best I
I'm
got.
gonna
I've
be
told you the
so
person from that.
real.
I've told you the person from
I'm blanking so hard. Oh wow.
I'm zooming in so the people can see where this.
Okay, hold on. I gotta Jimmy Neutron this really quickly. I gotta
You're
think.
good. You're good. I'm gonna go in our Discord chat. I'm gonna have it ready to send. You got one guess. What you got? Give me something. Speak to me.
Is this card? Is it like an Axu that I'm thinking about, or?
It is not an Axu. With all three guesses down, I have chosen a V Pokemon, not its V Star variant, which means it's not an attacking Pokemon, not a supporting Pokemon. It's a attacker, but not this card. The evolution is this card is Alternate Art Superior V, also known as one of Aaron's favorite Pokemon.
You know, I'm gonna be so for real.
A Gen 5 starter. Currently the gen you're playing in your free time.
I picked Oshawott. I'm gonna keep it.
I know you did. I know you did because you sent your
skipped this.
thing,
I
and
skipped
I'm
over.
like, well, I'm
I skipped
not.
over.
Yes, but
I deserve this. I deserve it.
but if you knew, like, if I sent this to Aaron, instantly he would have got this because he knows every inch of this card because he loves Superior. That was the message you responded to. Was Aaron talking about this card, and you said, "Yo, that art is dope. That card looks sick." Which is, or something like that. Like, you were complimenting the card. So I know you've seen the card before from that message, if nothing else. The bike, the shoes, noble being the word, if you put that together and played off noble, being an attack and superior, like, it just, I was like, you're either going to get this instantly or you're never going to get it, and this is why. It's also one of the coolest cards that I think, like,
100%.
Yeah, it came out in Silver Tempest, which is the last legal Sword and Shield set. I wanted something from Silver Tempest. That's what I was digging for, and this was the card that's
Speaking of which,
for so many reasons.
After the pod's over, I have something to send you.
Okay, word. Well, now I'm excited. Anyways, I'm gonna close out now because of that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I definitely enjoyed sitting here talking with y'all, giving y'all our take, our probably wildly awful and incorrect take on the current format, and where we think certain decks are. If you guys want any decks, want us to talk about any cards you want on the buy list or something like that, you want us to just have a conversation, Discord, comments, let us know. We're always here to talk and yap with y'all. With that being said, anything else you want to add?
Absolutely. Remember, guys, stay positive, stay awesome. Listen, if your deck is leaving because of this rotation, don't be sad. Adapt. That's what Lugia would want you to do, is adapt. They would want you to move on and be happy. So keep that in mind. I know it's going to hit hard. We're losing more in this rotation than any rotation I have personally played in or ever.
Well, there's actually the last one might have been bigger just because there was more Sword and Shield cards, but I think Sword and Shield was the biggest rotation set as a whole. So now that Sword and Shield is officially done, I think that's what's going to hurt the most.
Yeah, it's going to be unfortunate, but
yeah.
Remember, if the deck you play doesn't lose much, then just move on. I would say start right now building your post-rotation list. Get used to it, because you don't want to get caught off guard by people who have already done so. I've gotten my...
And I think the prices are still low on certain investments, and I think now is a good time. I think that's a great tip to end off on. Pick a deck, make the investment. If you're playing in tournaments, I think this tier list is going to be helpful for those tournaments, but if you're looking for more longevity, use this tier list as, we talked about, what's a good investment. And I think that's... this is a good time to make those calls. I know for me, I'm going to be doing a buy list now, and then a buy list 2 weeks after the set comes out. Well, I'll explain my reasoning on all that on the next episode, for why I wait 2 weeks. But for now, I think if there's some cards that you want to get pre-rotation, this is going to be the time. They're going to be the cheapest. Do it. Jump in now. Yeah, I like that. Anything else?
Remember? I think that's it. Hashtag ad. Use the link in the description. TCG player. Buy your bulks. Buy whatever you want. Just buy a Journey Together booster box.
If you're staring at the stuff in the corner on that side, you might as well just go to Avery's channel as well. I am Guardian. I mean, he's got an epic video with over 1,000 views that I bet he doesn't know about. So, yeah.
I saw.
Good. I'm glad. You deserve it.
Watch the Hydreigon video.
Watch the Hydreigon video.
Why I love it.
So real. Anyways, stay epic. Peace.